Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bright Ideas Podcast. I am your host, Trent Deersmith. As always, the goal is to share with you what is working in the world of online marketing and e-commerce. And the way that I do that is I bring rather proven experts onto the show to share with you and I their real world expertise. And we are going to do just that in today's episode with my guest, Jason. Before we introduce Jason, I want to bring you a message from our sponsor. The sponsor for this particular episode is an SEO tool by the name of Ahref. And prior to discovering Ahref, I was definitely not much of a fan of SEO. I was pretty ignorant about it, to be honest with you. I thought SEO was too difficult, it was too technical, or I was too late to the game and I was never going to get any results. And I got to say, now that I've been using their tool for a few weeks, I am absolutely amazed at how powerful the tool is and the amount of easily understandable data that I have access to. For example, if I want to know which keywords are driving traffic to a competitor's website, that is really easy to discover. If I want to know how to improve the ranking of my YouTube videos, that is also very easy for me to discover. If I want to easily perform detailed keyword research to identify important phrase that I should be using as the foundation for my cornerstone content, that is also very easy for me to discover. If I want to know the most popular pages on a competitor's website so that I perhaps would want to create content to target those same phrases, again, super easy for me to discover. So it is an all-in-one SEO tool. It is far more than just for generating backlinks, as most people may seem to think. And if you want to grow traffic to your website from organic sources, I strongly encourage that you check this tool out. They have actually just launched a beta edition for their new Keyword Explorer, and they have 9 additional sources of data, and it is a super cool tool. So if you have not checked it out, head on over. It's a bit of a funny name, so I'll spell it for you. It's ahrefs.com, ahrefs.com. All right, so with the sponsor message out of the way, Jason, thank you so much for making some time to come and be on the show. We are going to talk about webinars.
My favorite topic.
Your favorite topic indeed, and one is mine as well. So Jason and I have decided to do this as kind of a discussion about a webinar that I run every single month for the Bright Ideas brand. Before we get into that, maybe, Jason, let's start with just a quick intro of yourself. In your own words, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Jason Fladlien, and who am I? Geez, I'm many things, but I really like to think I'm a marketing strategist. Like to see where the gaps are in the marketplace that I can get into and own the space of, or that my company Rapid Crush can. And so the micro would be the webinar, but the macro is the ultimate position. What spot in the marketplace is being underserved or not served at all, that if served would be highly lucrative to the brand and super valuable to that market space. And that's pretty much what I do.
And you have a pretty impressive track record, and I know your intro there, you were pretty humble. Why don't you just talk a little bit about some of the results that you've been able to achieve using webinars?
Yeah, so between what we've done internally in our own company as well as what we've done with other companies, over $100 million in trackable webinar sales in the last decade, probably a hair under the last decade, which every time I utter those numbers out loud, it sounds unbelievable to me even, but it is. It's crazy. I started doing webinars in 2008 or 2009. There was no rule book for them back then, and I had no previous business experience really, so I had to make it all up. I couldn't borrow from any other thing and bring it in, so I created from the ground up, which ultimately was a huge benefit to me. So I've been able to work with some of the top people in the world. Like we helped Larry King with a webinar, did webinars for Tony Robbins, and a lot of the big name guys like Russell Brunson give me credit as teaching them how to do webinars. And it's been amazing for me, small town Iowa boy, to be able to do that. But that's what it is.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, congratulations on that success. And I will say, when I was preparing for this interview, I noticed when I visited Jason's site that he does have a book that you can get on Amazon. So if you don't want to shell out however many thousands of dollars to attend one of the conferences that he'll be speaking at, you can go and get the book on Amazon. What's the title of the book, Jason?
One to Many. The book is called One to Many, The Secrets of Webinar Success.
Okay. All right. So now let's dive into the meat of the discussion. So I have a webinar. Let me give you some background first of all. couple of years ago, I spoke at a conference. I had no product for sale. I was speaking about the success that I had had in my Amazon e-commerce business, and that business, we're a reseller. We partner with brands. We help them on the Amazon marketplace to grow their sales, solve problems, et cetera, et cetera. My business did $1 million in the first year, and the guy who I'd interviewed on this podcast, and he's the reason I kind of got into that business, calls me up after a year, and he's like, "Wow, dude, you did really, really well. How did you do it?" And I explained to him that I had this huge focus on standard operating procedures, on building a team, on delegation. He said, "That sounds really cool. Would you like to come speak about it?" So I said, "Sure." Got up on stage, had nothing for sale. At the beginning, I told everybody, "Look, I got nothing for sale. You're going to have to take really good notes because this is the only time you're going to get this, other than maybe you could watch a recording." At the end of that, we were overwhelmed with requests to sell people a copy of our collection of standard operating procedures. And we sold $1 million worth of those in the next year. And I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. So then I thought to myself, I'm doing this in these big product launches. I got to line up all these affiliates. I'd sure love a way to be able to scale that down and make it something that I could repeat every single month to my own list. And ultimately, could I drive paid traffic to it? Could I make it convert? And could I use that as a way of building my audience and growing my list faster? So I set out to become something of a student of webinars. And so here's what I did. I created, and it's not, the format that I followed is not unlike what you outlined in the book. I watched a bunch of other people's webinars and kind of got an idea. If I would have known about your book, I would have bought it for sure. So I put up a registration page, pretty simple, to the point. Here's what you get, here's the benefit, here's the time, here's a little bit about me, and then the webinar structure. So I took my product and I took just a little slice of it, because I knew that I didn't think that pitching a $2,500 product on just a one-time webinar was maybe going to be the best use of my time and effort, because those launches that we do, they're 2-week affairs and they're like a whole big deal.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought, all right, I'd watch somebody else's webinar, and her offer was for $397. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try a $397 offer. What can I make for $397? Well, I'm going to take a little tiny slice of my $2,500 product, and it would be the things that they would need at the very, very beginning of the journey to start a business like my Amazon business. So there are procedures around sourcing products.
Yep.
So instead of 77 SOPs in this offer, they get 7.
Perfect.
So what I did, actually, let's turn this into more Q&A. So knowing that is the problem that I want to solve,
right?
Walk me through, based upon your many years of experience, walk me through the process of creating that webinar and how to market it and so forth, all the things that you have the expertise in.
Yeah, so first of all, I would have took a step back and said, let's try to sell the $2,500 product first. And that might not be fair. For most people, a lot of it's psychological, a little of it's technical. Because the marketplace is not used to seeing $2,500 products sold on one-off webinars without a big buildup, we tend to conclude that that's not possible. But I have many, many, many examples of experience to prove that otherwise. Because the reality is, whether I'm going to write a webinar that sells a $2,500 product or one that sells a $400 product, it's going to take me about the same amount of time and effort. Okay. Because there's certain things that need to occur before a complete stranger who doesn't really know who you are decides that, hey, I trust you enough to give you money and believe at least enough in your promises to take that risk or that gamble. The other cool thing there too, Trent, is a webinar is a start of a conversation. So if somebody says no to the $2,500 product, it would be very easy to follow up and downsell them into a $300 product. So it's way easier to make somebody feel like they got $2,100 off. They saved $2,100 by taking a step down than it is to bring somebody up who just spent $300 and now trying to get them to spend $2,200 more. So that's the strategy to consider behind it. The reality is like, the number one complaint people have with webinars, Trent, like, let me ask you this question. How long is your webinar right now, selling your $300 or $400 product?
Including Q&A or just the deck?
Pretty much the deck. Like, when you're done with the last slide, what's the time say?
About 50 minutes. Actually, no. The offer comes up at 1 hour and 9 minutes. So
there you go.
Right around an hour.
So yeah, you're running 60 minutes at least. And the big complaint that people are going to say is, who would ever want to sit on a 60-minute webinar? It's like, God, that's a lot of time, isn't it?
They all stay to the. It amazes me.
Of course they do, right?
They stay to the end. Like we'll go including Q&A. We'll go 2 hours, and the count of attendees at the end is almost identical to what it was at the beginning.
Absolutely. And so the beautiful thing is, if you understand that concept and like really think about it, took me about 6 years to understand this concept. Is first of all, 90% of a market that would be interested in what you have to offer won't spend 60 minutes, but they won't come to your webinar because they're not interested enough in that topic, or they're not leveraged enough at this point to put that forth, that effort. They might one day or they might not. But 10% of your market will put in at least 60 minutes and then be disappointed that there's not 60 more minutes, as long as there's more informative, interesting, engaging content. A 2-hour webinar that's interesting will outperform a 1-hour webinar, and a 3-hour one will outperform a 2, and a 4 will outperform a 3. We typically run out of energy before our audience runs out of appetite of consumption, right? I mean, we go to seminars that are maybe 3 days long and they're 8 hours a day. It's 24 hours of information, and even then we're not satiated. So now here's the economics of any marketplace. If we really stop to think about it, is 10% of your market's going to spend 50% of its dollars. So that's who we love to point the marketing at, is the few people who control a majority of that market's dollars. So reaching them and getting them to commit 60 minutes of their time and attention, and maybe even up to 120 minutes without very little minimum drop-off, as you just discussed, we can build an argument and a case almost as easily for a $2,500 product as we could for a $300 or a $400 product, because these people are committed, and so they are more interested in the right type of outcome than they are cost conscious. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it does.
So, but, you know, sometimes you have to see it before you can believe it. So let's just go with what we got here. So the price point exactly on this offer is what?
$397.
$397. Is it a one-off only, or do you give them payment options?
One-off only, and then
Thank God.
there is also, they have 14 days where they can upgrade to the $2,500 product, and a portion of them always do.
Okay, good. And we'll definitely get to that. So the first kind of concept here, though, that I would look at is, you know, this is a, and just remind me again, it's a $397, right?
Yep. Yep.
So we have to convince somebody in an hour-long period of time to spend that amount of time, or maybe 2 hours. So the first thing that we would look at is the offer in this particular case. Do you offer any bonuses, or do they just essentially buy the SOPs, and that's what they're exchanging money for?
There are bonuses available only on the webinar. In addition, and the price of the product, if they go to my website, is $597. So there is a bonus of a $200 savings, and there is a bonus of additional content.
Right, and this is great because you're actually getting a little bit ahead of me, which is fine, because part of the offering, because the first thing we do when we look at structuring a webinar is how do we make the offer as attractive as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. My goal is to always make somebody feel like they're ripping me off when they purchase from me. Like they almost feel bad that they're taking advantage of me, because they're like, God, if only he knew how valuable this was, he wouldn't give it away for so little. Gosh, what an idiot. You know, I want every client and customer to feel that. So it starts with the offer, and part of the offer is what they get. And what they get is combined between what they think they pay for and what they have for free. And so the bonuses are what they get for free. And that's actually more attractive and powerful to purchasers than what they pay for. So they look at values to dollars on what they pay for, and then every free thing that they get is an extra thing that they otherwise wouldn't get. So the psychology behind that is really powerful. So what do we link towards what they pay for, and what do we link towards what they get for free? That's part of the offer. The other part of the offer is the scarcity. And scarcity is, for anybody listening to this, is the most compelling and powerful motivational tool you can use to convert a sale. There is nothing stronger on this earth to move somebody from no to a yes than scarcity. Mm-hmm. So we put a lot of effort into scarcity because the reality is people will move towards pleasure at a smaller degree than they will to move away from pain. And scarcity is to avoid pain. They don't want to miss out. That's a negative frame, not a positive frame, right? So in your particular case, on the webinar, you make the case at some point in time, says, listen, you can get this every single day on my website for $5.97, or if you act before the end of this webinar, you get it for $3.97, plus you get all these bonuses. Is that, in a nutshell, essentially how you use the scarcity trend?
Yep. And the replay is only up for 72 hours, and once the replay is gone, everything's gone. And
this is awesome because, like, a lot of people, when they come to me, Trent, and they want to talk about webinars, they get super tactical. They talk about language patterns, and they will talk about all kinds of really advanced microscopic things that arguably don't matter too much. And what we're talking about here is strategy, which is really important because it's less about how many people buy on the webinar, and it's more how they buy through the cycle of the campaign, as I'd like to call it. So the first question we say, is there a replay? Is there not a replay? In your particular case, there is a replay, and the replay is only available for 72 hours, right? Yeah. And then the second question then we ask is, do we make more money by offering a replay or not? I generally, in the companies I consult with and write webinars for, we will typically make more money off the replay than we will actually than the live webinar, right? So if we sell 25 units on the live webinar, we might sell 40 units on the follow-up replays. Yep. Now, there are exceptions to that. And so this is something we'd have to determine here is one of the major exceptions that we would run into in this particular case is if you have webinar-only bonuses. So if anybody watches the webinar and they find out after the webinar that they could have got something for free that they can no longer get, that doesn't make our buyers feel very good. And now they're associating bad feelings with our offer. And so the replay could potentially be affected. All right. Mm-hmm. Now, just let me ask you, if you feel comfortable sharing this, what's your replay look like versus your actual live or the webinar that's when it's going on? Is the conversion rate the same? Is it a lot less, or is it a little bit less?
It's actually much higher. And I think
interesting.
I think that might be to do with scheduling. So I do my webinars at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So, because I don't want to work in the evenings and I'm in Mountain Time. Right. So there could be an issue of, people are at work, mm-hmm. Or they're, commuting, or depending on what time zone they're in. And whereas the replay, they're able to watch it at their particular schedule.
Your bonuses, when you say webinar only bonuses, they don't get those bonuses if they buy the next day on the replay, right? They only get those if they're there live, or do they get those within the 72 hours of the expiration?
They get all the bonuses within the 72 hours.
Okay, perfect. And that's typically, most of the time, that's how I structure the offers. Okay. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll do, if you buy before the webinar ends today, then you'll get these bonuses, and that will like double conversion on the webinar itself, but it will kill the replay. Mm-hmm. Here's the mistake a lot of people make, by the way, that we only learn through data analysis, Trent, is a majority of our buyers are people that were on the webinar but didn't buy on the webinar. They went home and slept that night. They thought about it the next day. They did their research, or most often they do it like they study for a test, put it off to the last minute and pull an overnighter, right? Everybody likes to wait to the last minute. That's why the scarcity is so powerful. Now with a lower ticket item, which is what I would consider what you have in this market as a stair step, is we can put more pressure towards impulsivity purchasing because a $400 thing is not a make or break deal, whereas a $2,500 could be the difference. Like, ooh, do I pay the bills this month or not? In which we don't want to put somebody through that situation. So that's some of the things that you could potentially play with in terms of how you structure this. But generally speaking, you've structured it the exact way that I typically recommend. I feel more comfortable not putting people on a buy or die scenario, pressure cooker. You have to buy right now or bad things will happen. I like to let them know they can have a chance to buy right away. We urge them to buy right away, but we follow up, close. Okay. So now let's look at the scarcity, though, from a deeper level. And at a lower price point, this matters less than at a higher price point, but it still matters. Scarcity, since it's so important, we need a strong reason for them to believe in the scarcity and to believe that it is viable. So what's your reason why? What do you tell them on the webinar right now? Why it's $397 on the webinar versus $597 on your website, and why they get bonuses on the webinar, whereas they wouldn't if they bought straight from your website?
I tell them because they've invested their time to come and spend an hour or two with me, and I want to make sure that they come away from that time, first of all, with maximum value. Like there's a slide where I say, if you left now and didn't buy anything, would you be better off?
Nice.
And the vast majority of the time, screen lights up with the thumbs up in the webinar software. So I feel that I've accomplished my mission in that regard. And then I say, well, I want to reward you for being here and investing this time with me and furthering your relationship with me and my brand by making you this offer.
Perfect. So that's the standard reason why that we tell clients to use it for no other reason. Hey, because you invested in me, I want to invest in you. You put your time in me. That shows me you're a go-getter. You're somebody who's going to take action. You're somebody who's focused and committed. And so you're somebody who I would like to back. And this is how I'm going to back you. Instead of asking you to pay the normal retail price of $5.97, which any stranger can do any day of the week, not only am I going to give you a time-limited special offer discount, but if you act fast, not only are you going to get the discount, you're also going to get some goodies. And let's talk about what those goodies are, yada, 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 et cetera, right? Yep. That's really powerful reason why. I would consider, now this could work two ways, and what's great about webinars is they're very fluid, so you can take this out if it doesn't work. I would consider an alternative reason why. And the reason why would be structured something like this. It would say, I am so confident that when you see these 7 SOPs and you dive in, you're going to want the other 70 or however many they are, right? And so really, I'm just kind of hooking you up to give you a little taste, knowing full well that once you get on the inside, you're going to be so excited to convert to the higher level. And so the reason I'm doing this is to get you in there, and I'm not above bribery to do it, essentially, right? Yeah. I'm actually foreshadowing the second sale on the first sale, and I wouldn't be bashful about that. I'd say my goal is to get you to spend $2,500 with me to get all of these SOPs. But I know $2,500 is a tall order and a tall ask for you. So I'm doing this the way that I've always been taught to live life. Let me be super valuable to you first, and then after I prove myself, then you can decide. And so this is what I'm doing for you today. I am doing something that I shouldn't be doing. This should definitely not be $397, and you should absolutely not get all these incredible bonuses for this price. And under normal circumstances, that wouldn't be possible. But here are the circumstances that allow it. Mm-hmm. And then because you've invested your time in me today, you're somebody that I know is the right person. Now you can continue with that rhetoric. But I believe you would not see any decrease in conversion on the webinar, and you might even see some increase on the webinar for the first product. But I would be very certain that if you do that right, and it might take a little bit to get that just right, that you would see an increase on the upgrades from the people that take the offer on the front end that will take the offer on the second end. We always, we're selling the second product before we sell them the first product in that scenario. I think that would be worth trying, because most often people will buy in at the low level. Now, this is the psychology, Trent, just so you know, this is what the customer's going to think. Yeah, sure, Trent, whatever. I'm just going to buy the front-end product. I'm not going to buy that back-end product. I'm just going to take advantage of this deal, which is totally fine, right? Yep. But the reality is we have planted a thought in their head to consider, a bullseye to aim for. Well, if he does do that, then yeah, I would. And by making them more open to it and make them feel more like that's just a natural progression of how life should unfold, they're going to be more likely to do that anyway. And the reality was that's how it was always intended in the first place, because that's how you created the product originally. This is a derivative of that product. I would even tell that story of how you created the full product. And then you realize that, it's probably too much too soon for too many people. But that's what I would consider playing with and finessing. Now, obviously, back of the napkin, off the top of my head on a podcast, the language is a little rough. The concept's a little bit ham-fisted. But the general strategy there would be to foreshadow the second sale as a reason why they're getting such a good deal on the first sale. Because if your business was only to sell them 7 SOPs, there's no possible way you would give away gold for copper prices. Yeah. You only do so because you're going to make it up on the back end. That's why they're getting such an incredible deal. But it's only for a limited time because they're on the webinar today, et cetera. So does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah, it's very funny because a lot of us tend to shy away from our real intentions, when I've found typically if we bring them out and put them forward and just make a strong case for them, that's actually more effective. Let's talk about, do you offer a guarantee or not?
I do.
Okay, well, what is that guarantee?
Anytime within 30 days, they can get a refund.
Perfect. That's a standard guarantee. Generally, what we do is, at the very least, we will use a guarantee like that one. But something to consider is dramatizing up the guarantee a little bit, or dressing it up, or making it more exciting and interesting. So if we did nothing more than give it a name and then build up to the concept of really playing it out, I think that could see an increase, because all my best webinars, Trent, have had better than money back guarantees, which I don't think makes sense for the price point that you have right now. But even the webinars that had standard regular guarantees, we would try to go the extra level to really dimensionalize those guarantees, because people are way more likely to say no to your offer because they are afraid of something than they will ever on price, than they will ever on product, topic, believability, any other issue. The biggest scare is going to be, well, what bad things are going to happen to me when I buy your product, right? And so I really spend the time to take that away from them. So I even ask myself, and a lot of my really powerful webinars guarantees come from, what other costs may they incur besides buying my product? Because even if I gave them the money back from my product, are they out in some other way, shape, or form? Are they in some other way harmed or damaged? Because then it's not truly risk-free. And if that's the case, how do I address that? Now, if that's not the case, then how can I hype that up? Can I give them a reason to measure whether they should get a guarantee or not? That can be super effective. So what I say to them, listen, 30 days from now, one of three things will happen. The first thing is you're going to get way more than your money's worth. You're going to feel really good about this thing, and you're going to consider getting the other SOPs, which is probably going to happen for you, most likely. If I had a crystal ball, out of those three things that are about to happen to you, that's the first one. The second one is you're going to get in right away, and you're going to say, this is completely rubbish. There's nothing good about this. I've been tricked. What a piece of crap product. And you're going to want your money back. And whether that's 1 minute from now or 29 days and 23 hours from now, you can get your money back, no questions asked. Don't even have to give me a reason. I don't even want to hear a reason. Just say, give me my money back, and it's yours. Done. That's the second option. That almost never happens, but hey, let's just bring it up. That's a possibility. As remote as it is, just like getting hit by a bus when you cross the street might happen, even though it probably won't happen. Let's talk about scenario number 3, though. Scenario number 3 is where you see promise, but for some reason or another, you don't act on it right away. Or if you do this, this, and this, but there are some things that life interferes, what happens to you after 30 days? Well, you no longer have the risk-free, no questions asked guarantee, but you have my better than money back guarantee, which states this: if you do X, Y, and Z and don't see 1, 2, and 3, I'll still give you your money back, even if it's 90 days from now or 150 days from now, right? That is how confident, now this is important, the reason why we give the guarantee. That is how confident I am in this product. And I want to let you know that I am so assured of the benefit that you get that I'm willing to go the extra mile on your behalf to help you understand that the only real losing situation here is doing nothing.
Okay.
And again, that's rough. That's 5 minutes or 2 minutes of effort. That's not me with a slide deck crafting it for an hour like we normally do, right? But we need to remove, as marketers, what I've noticed, Trent, is we typically focus on all the benefits because we're typically optimistic. I mean, multimillionaire. I haven't needed to work a day in my life for the last 6 years. I don't use alarm clocks, right? I go wherever I want, do whatever I want, whenever I want. Life's pretty damn good for me. Now, most of the people that get on webinars and are willing to sit there for an hour, life, at least for that particular issue, topic, or problem, is not very good for them. So we're coming from a world of abundance, and they're coming from a world of scarcity. We're coming from a world of prosperity, and they're coming from a world where there's just pressure. So we have to kind of remember that we have to talk about the bad, not just the good. We typically talk about benefits and great outcomes and amazing things and fantastic, because that's the world we live in. And for this particular issue, it's really good for you. You've already solved the problem. They're on the beginning of the journey of solving the problem. So we have to make sure to address the very scary, dark, deep, secretive things that are running through their head, and bringing them out and showing them that they're not really that bad and that you're going to take care of them. So the guarantee is one function of how we do that, but I also bring that up even during the presentation. So that's what we would look at for the offer. Now let me ask you this, because you've done this webinar how many times live?
January for 5.
Okay. There are probably, because you do these actually live, right? You're on the call live with them?
I am. I do it once per month live, and then about a month ago I started an experiment where I evergreened it, and I'm driving paid YouTube traffic to it.
Nice. That's a smart strategy. We typically will do live webinars to audiences that we can email, and we'll do evergreen webinars to every other audience, especially paid traffic. That's a whole different discussion, though. Let's just stay with the live one. I would imagine when you get to Q&A, there are certain questions that you've noticed that have been asked over and over again. Is that right?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the number one question people ask you during the Q&A portion after they've heard your whole pitch, seen your whole spiel, and they still haven't bought yet? What are you getting normally?
Man, I'm going to have to think about that one for a minute. I know I should have an answer right quick off the top of my head.
Or anyone, just for the sake of this podcast, so anybody listening can see the thought process. Because it really doesn't matter, because we're going to have to do this for like 5 different things anyway. So
yeah, okay. I know what it is. How easy is it going to be for me? Because a part of my pitch is standard operating procedures make it easy to delegate. So the question is going to be, how do I hire a VA? How do I train them? And is it easy to delegate? Okay.
And do you have any bonuses right now that crush that objection?
Let me just have a quick peek into the product, because I don't remember off the top of my head as much as I should.
Yeah, that's okay. I understand how that works.
Not bonuses. It's core part of the offering. That there
are
procedures in there that facilitate. That's kind of the core value prop of the product.
That logically makes total sense, right? I'm telling you, emotionally, though, even if it's part of the core product, I would consider creating a separate standalone bonus that drills down even more specifically to that one concept, right? If this was a higher price product, Trent, or maybe even if it's not and you have a connection, I would go out on my client's behalf and work a deal with a third-party VA company that I felt very comfortable with, work a special better than public offer and ship them as part of the bonus for my offer, right? It would have to be free to them to make it work, so no cost incurred for them. But if you could work with a company where their first VA for X number of hours is free because you negotiated that deal, that will crush that objection to oblivion. And people will be like, oh my God, I got to buy this right away. The thought process behind this trend is, if I can retail arbitrage bonuses from third parties that total together more than what I'm asking for the price of my product, I'm essentially making my product better than free. And almost all of my webinars have done that. And they all start from that root of objection. That's one of the ways. That's not the only way we're going to smash that objection, by the way, because objections are so insidious to the sale that we bring a bazooka to kill them, not a hammer. So that might be considered one of the issues. The other thing is, even on the guarantee, you could say, hey, listen, here's the deal. If you follow X, Y, and Z and you hire a VA and they don't perform well, and up to $400 we will reimburse you on your VA, provided you do 1, 2, and 3 on a conditional guarantee. That's a lesson on what you could do to power up and punch up the guarantee. And again, I wouldn't do this on a $400 product, but I would consider doing things like this on a $2,500 product if I'm selling that on the front end. More important, though, is the lesson, not the specific, which is how do we make our offer so attractive that somebody would feel they would feel stupid for not saying yes to it, right? We want to make an offer so good that people feel bad for not saying yes to it. And that's one of the ways that we play with it. So the whole concept of delegation is very scary to most people. Do you use testimonials in your webinar anywhere?
Absolutely. I have several screenshots and one video.
Perfect. So what I would attempt to do for big objections, let's assume this is the number one objection, or we think it is. In the introduction, I would put a testimonial that would talk about how somebody was able to delegate even though they've never done it before. Or something along the lines of the objection they have, brought it up, and it was handled, right? I would want 3 different testimonials in 3 different places. I'd want a testimonial in the intro, one in the content section, and one in the pitch section. So they would be 3 different testimonials that all talk about one. One of them might say, hey, listen, I never did delegation before. I was super freaked out about it. And boy, was I surprised at how easy it was. If I'd have known this 6 years ago, I'd probably already be a millionaire by now. A testimonial like that. I'd have another testimonial that says, listen, I've done delegation in the past. It was a disaster. It's like hiring a kid to mow your lawn and he just steals from you instead and leaves, gets the daughter pregnant and runs off to Vegas, right? So I was really scared to try that again based on the battle scars of the past. But the way that Trent laid it out made it easy as pie, and it was super simple, and I was able to move forward with it. And then a third person might be like, hey, I'm an outsourcing pro, but even I was able to do this easier than I've ever have before. Thanks, Trent, yada, 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 right? So 3 distinct testimonials from 3 different angles that all handle that objection placed in 3 different locations, one in the beginning, one in the middle, and one in the end. Now, there's a lot of psychology behind why we do that, because it's an anchor and amplify technique. Anytime you bring up a testimonial, they'll remember the previous testimonial. So they'll relive that testimonial as long as it's of the same type, right? So all 3 of these testimonials are along the same type of this is my objection, right? So each time we bring up a new one, they'll remember the old one again, and then they'll link it to the new one. So it won't feel like an incremental increase, it'll feel like an exponential increase. And so by doing it in 3 different locations time-wise, we capture them at 3 different stages of being open to the idea, being interested in the idea, and then being invested in the idea. So I would look at doing that, and I would also look at doing that with any other or with any other major objection that somebody might have, having 3 different testimonials specific to that objection, and then making them obvious. Because this is the biggest problem I've noticed, Trent, with testimonials, is they should be obvious at a glance what the intention behind the testimonial is. So big-ass headline. So if somebody said 250 words, we might show all 250 words on the screen, but we're only going to highlight the 7 words that says, the outsourcing thing was the most scary to me going in, and it was the easiest thing going out. And that's the big, gigantic headline. That's the thing you highlight. That's the thing you talk about, right? I would also do the following in the introduction, create a commitment frame. I would say, I'm going to show you something today that you might not have any experience with, and you might be scared to wonder if you can do that. And I'm going to talk to you about delegating it. So are you okay with the idea that if I show you how to do a business that runs on other people and you don't have to do much to it, even if you have no experience with it, are you okay with considering it and being open to that, even if it makes you a little nervous? Will you promise me that you'll at least give it a try and then see for yourself, as opposed to be boogeyman, monster under the bed, afraid to not even do that? If I give you an option that you feel comfortable moving forward with, will you promise me that you will move forward with this and start this, even if it is unfamiliar and a little uncomfortable to you? Do we have a deal on that? And so we will get everybody in the first 5 minutes, Trent, to agree that, I'll try out this scary thing that I don't really know about. Mm-hmm. As long as I feel comfortable that you've guided me through the process appropriately. So when it comes time to close, that person is going to immediately still have that reflex. Oh my God, I don't know if I could do this because I've never outsourced or because I'm afraid I'm going to hire the wrong VA. And then immediately when that thought kicks, the other thought will think, well, I told Trent I would. I gave him my word. And most good, honest people don't want to go against their word, nor should they, because this is not a real scary thing. It's only imaginatively scary. But, a lot of imagination kills a lot of cells.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so those would be the big things that I would look at. The only other thing I would consider doing is get your last webinar transcribed and then go through and highlight it and look at how many times that you do a commitment question. So these are eliciting a yes. So that makes sense to you, doesn't it? Is an example of yes. Or does that ring true with you? That's an example of yes. Or tell me, how does that sit with you? Does that look like something that you can move forward with? All of those are designed to elicit yeses, and more important to me than the yes even, they are conversational in tone, not a lecture or a presentation, but a conversation. The number one effective thing that we can do in webinars that most people don't is we can be conversational, even in evergreen webinars, because people, when they watch a video on YouTube, they know it's not a conversation. They could leave comments underneath of it, right? And if they watch video sales letters online for advertisements, if somebody says, hey, does that sit well with you? Let me know your thoughts on that. that's pandering. They're like, hey, you're a jerk. You recorded this video 6 years ago. Of course you're not going to be listening to me, right? But even if the webinar is pre-recorded, if it's under the frame of come to this webinar event, at this event, we're going to be talking about these things, right? And you have this conversation. We say, let me ask you this question. If this and this were to happen to you, what do you think your response would be? Well, having worked with a lot of people, I could tell you it's probably one of these three things. It's either this, this, or this. Now, of these three things, which one sounds like you? Tell me, go ahead and tell me in the chat right now, right? Even if there's nobody there, we want to create a conversational tone, not a presentational tone. So by analyzing the transcript and highlighting how many times do I ask questions, how many times do I do interactivity, how many times do I frame it as a wouldn't that be wonderful if, or don't you agree that this is something you should be doing, or any other type of yes question. What I find with 90% of the people we work with, Trent, is because it's not natural. They don't get enough yeses. My goal is to get 50 to 100 yeses, bare minimum, in a webinar presentation. I'll settle for 50. I like 100 better. But my goal is to do it in such a way that it is natural. You know, when somebody says, like, hey, who here wants to make more money at a seminar, we all roll our eyes. We're like, oh, God, one of these guys. That still works, by the way, as annoying as it is, because it's very effective from a commitment standpoint. But if you say something along the lines, wouldn't it be wonderful if a little bit more money showed up in your life a little bit more often? That'd be great, wouldn't it? We just got 2 yeses there, and nobody's even aware of it. We're creating a conversation, and that's one of the most powerful things that I think is underutilized in the webinar setting. And I wouldn't give you any more information than that, Trent, because I don't want to overwhelm you.
I was feeling really good about the yeses, because I actually put slides in and I do the comment thing a lot.
Really?
But I don't do it 50 times.
Yeah, I mean, so even if you do it well, which is rare, and I trust you that you do, it's still enlightening to highlight and count exactly how many times you do.
Yeah.
Because most of us who, even when we do it well, we don't realize how little we actually do it compared to how much we can. But what I instruct people to do, Trent, anybody listening to this, because this is not natural, just put it on your slides. Like when we create webinars for clients, we will literally write it on their slide, the tie downs. Or if they think that's a little funky, which it's not, we will make that slide where we ask for a commitment a different background color than every other slide that we have in our deck. So maybe red is always the one we tie down, or maybe blue is, or green, or whatever the case may be. You know, and then we want to talk with our people, not talk at them. So it's just really interesting just to be able to count. And it becomes second nature after a while when you realize, like, oh, man, I could be having a conversation here. Or even if I would reframe anything to be more conversational, what would that look like, as opposed to just talking to them? So
let's go back to the conditional guarantee for a minute.
Yep.
So with my product, one of the conditional guarantees I thought about doing, and actually I did it on the entire product in a 30-day guarantee for a while, but then I simplified it to just hey, you want your money back, I'll give you your money back. But the conditional guarantee was, if you show me, like, one of the big value propositions is we're going to enable you to send over 100 emails a week to prospective suppliers, because there's all this labor that's involved in that. And without VAs in the systems, like, there's just no way someone could do all the research necessary to be able to send 100 emails a week. But they need to send that many to give themselves the chance to succeed, because the rejection rate's really high from suppliers.
Of course.
So if the conditional guarantee was, hey, if you can show me in your sent bin that you've sent, 1,000 emails or 500, some number of emails, and got nothing in terms of response, you haven't landed any accounts, then, up to 90 days later, I give all your money back, and I do this, and I cover the cost of your VA. And is that? Yeah,
there's a significant flaw in that guarantee, unfortunately. It's a clever guarantee, but there's one big problem with it.
Okay.
The only way I would do a guarantee, and that's why there's so much art to this trend. This is why I love this so much. The only way I do a guarantee like that is if I said, in the course, we tell you exactly how many emails you should send out. And it's automated, and it's pretty easy to do. But there's a certain threshold you have to send out. And here's the deal. I am so confident that if you hit that threshold and you don't get this result, then not only will I refund your money back, but I'll also give you an extra $400 for your efforts or something like that, right? So you get double your money back. But notice I didn't say the number of emails, because unfortunately, if we say 1,000 or even 100 emails, the prospect in their mind gets very scared. So we've literally created an objection out of thin air in that scenario. Yeah. So now we have to balance how comfortable do we feel obscuring that piece of information versus just not using the webinar or the guarantee close at all. And I don't know on an answer like that, but that's the only way that I would use that. I would say, listen, there's a certain number of emails and you can reach them very easily if you follow our process, and it's automated. As long as you hit that threshold, if you don't accomplish X, Y, and Z, then you will get this on top of your money back. That's like the framework behind that. Yep. And that could work. I mean, the reality is we always ask this question. Are we asking too much? Is this unrealistic what we're asking for? And I don't think it is, because they're supposed to hit that enough. The other thing is context switch. A lot of people don't realize this, Trent, but it's like until somebody spent money with you, they have an identity as not your customer, but as somebody who might be your customer, and they look at you differently within that identity, right? Mm-hmm. But once they pay you money, they have a whole different relationship with you, so they look at you differently. A lot of this is confirmation bias. What they'll say is, well, he must be an authority. How do I know that? Because I paid him money, so therefore he must be authority. Because he's an authority that I paid money to, I will listen to him. And now all of a sudden they feel good about sending 1,000 emails because they're like, well, that's what Trent says to do. I'm going to do it. But before they give you money, you say, hey, send 1,000 emails. They say, whoa, Guru over here, who's also in my inbox, who I haven't spent money with yet, says I only need to send one email. And I don't know what to do, so therefore I'm not going to do anything. And nobody wins in that scenario. So that'd be the only way I would consider doing something like that. But even then, for a $400 product, my gut just says just to dimensionalize the guarantee. Just make it a no questions asked money back guarantee.
No, I was thinking for the 20.
Spend a little bit more time romancing that stone, right?
I was thinking for the 20. If I was to test doing a $2,500
if you were to test doing a $2,500 product, absolutely. In that particular case, I would look at a way, and here's how we structure these guarantees. Now, it's a tough conversation that I have with people when I talk about this, Trent, because there's a lot of little nuance to this. So it's very hard, I've noticed, for people to duplicate this without putting in some serious effort. But here's our sweet spot. We want to have some people qualify for that guarantee. And here's why. There's two major reasons why. The first reason why is we don't want our audience to feel like it's a gimmick, because there's a lot of better than money back guarantees out there that are just farces. They're just made to be manipulative to get people to pay money, but they're totally unobtainable. And audiences can smell those or be off put. So a double your money back guarantee might actually cost sales, not help sales, if they think you're doing it just to purely manipulate them, which a lot of people do that. It's a mistake, right? The other way, though, is just as bad. When you make it too convoluted, too complicated, or you make it too scary, and then people are like, well, I was going to buy, but now I'm not going to buy anymore. So we have to ride that wave of being right in the middle. So our goal is always this. We say this guarantee has got to increase conversion a significant amount, but we will plan on spending this much extra in refund guarantees per client that we get right now, right? So we had a double your money back guarantee on a $3,500 product. And over the lifetime of that product, we probably, I don't know how many we sold, thousands of that product, right? And we had 9 people qualify for a guarantee, which is essentially a $25,000 guarantee. So they pay $3,500, and then some of them we'd end up paying up to $25,000 back to count for all their costs, reimburse them for their time, buy the course back from them, because it wasn't even our course. We structured this guarantee for an affiliate product above and beyond the vendor's guarantee, right? So we had 9 people that qualified for a $25,000 guarantee or up to. It wasn't even total that. But if you just do the math on that, I don't know what that is, but it's like $250,000, right? But I swear, I know this for a fact, that we generated at least $3 million more in sales because of that guarantee, and that's just on the front end. Some of those people went on to buy other products for us. So we were very happy to be able to put a situation in, and that's just the direct tangibles. Here's the real reason we do these guarantees, Trent, is just like anybody who's smart, we want as many of our customers to succeed as possible. That just means more testimonials for me to use, more word of mouth, more ways to consolidate the marketplace because people will talk to it. You just got results that nobody can match. And if I got results nobody that can match, I can make bolder promises and bolder guarantees, right? Yeah. So, but unfortunately, a majority of the responsibility of success doesn't rely on the course seller. It relies on the person purchasing the course. And a majority of the reason people don't succeed with courses is because they don't start. And so if we can light a fire up under them and give them a target to shoot for, we're essentially giving them a goal-setting course built in automatically into our product. And so if this would help in this particular case, I believe it would enable your audience to get a bigger benefit, which would be more beneficial for you. But you got to be okay with a guarantee where you say, well, if 5% of people qualify for this guarantee, does the math work out in my favor still? And that's why oftentimes a lot of my clients they'll just be like, screw this double your money back guarantee. I'll just focus on beefing up the offer. And that's a perfectly valid way of going about it. But it's just something to start percolating on.
All right. Due to a time constraint, we are going to have to wrap here, but I want to thank you very much, Jason, for making some time and coming and sharing what I consider to be a truckload of value. And I took notes like Matt, and I hope the audience did as well. For people who want to get more of your stuff, more of you, hire you, buy whatever it is that you sell, where do they go?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is just go to Amazon and buy the book One to Many. Not only will that tell you some of the tactical stuff that we didn't talk about today, and more of the stuff we did talk about, but that's like the perfect entry point then into seeing, if you like that, what else we got.
Yep. Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for making the time.
It's been a pleasure for me as well, Trent. Thank you.